I have suggested that the Lord's Supper, which I would argue is probably the one staple of Christianity that runs through all denominations and runs through all heretical offshoots as well, right? I mean, you have communion in Mormonism,
even Jehovah's Witnesses,
the Baptists, the Lutherans, the Catholics, you name it. Now, with that said, the Mormons, yes, man, I got to clip that. By the way, I redid our soundboard. I pared everything down. So anyway, I have hypothesized, I have argued that the communion that we celebrate today, when it says "do this in remembrance of me," is not talking about an institution that the church has made, but rather that it's talking about the Passover. Now this is extremely controversial, especially with the teaching of the church that the communion confers grace. I don't know what that means. And I think that every denomination has a different understanding of what that means, that the communion or the Eucharist gives grace to the person who participates in it. But I have significant issue with language like that. And I think that comes straight from the doctrine of transubstantiation. If you don't know what that large word means, it's a good Scrabble word, but basically it just means that the wine and the bread become the physical body of Christ and the blood of Christ. And so when you are participating in the Eucharist, I put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. Anyway, when you are participating in the Eucharist, you're actually ingesting the sacrifice of Christ. And since he is deity, you are ingesting deity. And therefore, your tank of grace, which is probably on E right now, gets raised to half full or whatever. And now you're saved. According to the Catholics, and this is why you have last rites if a person hasn't had communion and then they sin. Well, now their grace tank goes down a little bit, so you got to bring that back up to full. Now, of course, as an evangelical, I don't believe that, and neither does Rob. However, go to an evangelical.
What I think it's like when you go to the coffee stand and you get a card and they punch it, and you get your 10th one free.
There you go.
I think that's what getting into heaven is like that. Like getting into heaven is but you have to go to the same latte stand. And you have to remember to bring your punch card. But once you get to that 10th punch, you're golden.
Can I tell you a story? Can I tell you a quick story? This is kind of on topic, kind of off topic. So last week
I love it that way.
Right? Last week after our show, I went to jiu-jitsu and I went to roll at jiu-jitsu, right? Okay, so there is a guy that I roll with often. He's hilarious, and he actually does have a real soft spot in my heart. I really like this guy. Anyway, he's a Roman Catholic, and so I'm on the ground and he's like on top, like, you know, I'm struggling to get good grips or whatever, and he said something like, "So what'd you do today?" Right? Like we're trying to kill each other, and he's like, "So what'd you do today?" And I was like, "Oh, nothing. Just talked on my show about how the sacraments are nonsense." He's a blue belt, so he could kill me in a matter of seconds. But he just said, "Oh, you'll see someday. Don't worry, you'll see." He kept saying that, "You'll see." So I mean, the thing is that, yes, we're ruffling feathers, and yeah, it might sound like we're kind of making fun of things like Catholicism. However, I do believe that this is probably the biggest downfall in theology of the church, and this wasn't like a outlier theology. This theology of the sacraments shaped how the church views the sacraments today. A perfect example of this is go to any, I shouldn't say any. Many evangelical churches today will still use language like the communion, confers grace to those who take it. So this, whether or not the evangelical church wants to admit this or not, this is a holdover of Catholic theology and a holdover of transubstantiation. And I think that when we look at denominations such as the Presbyterians, I do have a soft spot in my heart for the Presbyterians because of like Ligonier Ministries, R.C. Sproul, right? Some of these champion theologians of the 20th century have been Presbyterians, and I owe a great debt of my theology. You know, I stand on the shoulders of a lot of these Presbyterians, but the Presbyterians are those who will say things like we receive grace from the communion. I think this is really bad theology. I think this is some of the worst theology within the Presbyterian denomination. Thank you so much for watching this video. Tell us your thoughts on this subject by leaving a comment in the comment section. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and enable those notifications. And we'll see you in the next video.